and welcome to MVP Panel Talk. Do you need to back up Microsoft 365? A great question. Today's exciting webinar is sponsored by Veeam and produced by Actual Tech Media. My name is Jess Steinbach. I'm with Actual Tech Media, and I am so happy to be your moderator and to help kick off this fascinating MVP panel. Now, the format today is going to be a little different than usual because instead of maybe one or two speakers and some slides, we get to hear from a whole panel of top innovators and experts who are going to chat with you about some of the best practices, trends, and things that you should know about Microsoft 365 data. These are the kinds of discussions that honestly, I have to say, they just kind of light up your brain. I don't know about you guys, but when I leave these panel discussions, I'm always firing on all cylinders because we basically get to sit in on a casual chat between data and backup rock stars, which is pretty cool, right? So I don't know about all of you, but I am pumped up. So I'm going to just zip through a few of the usual kind of general webinar information, and then we're going to bring out our panel. So let's jump right in. Now, first, I want to draw your attention over to the questions section of your webinar console because we're doing things a little bit differently today. The panel is going to do their best to stop and take questions along the way and at the end. So please do be sure to get questions inside that console there. But I also want to remind you that if we're moving things along too quickly today and we don't get to all the questions asked, don't worry, because we're getting all the questions to Veeam after we wrap, and they are going to follow up with you. So you're going to get answers to any of the questions that you ask. So this is a great opportunity to reach out directly to a bunch of really, really smart, awesome humans who can get you really smart, awesome answers. So ask those questions. A quick reminder that the questions console is also a great place to say hi, reach out to your friends here in the Actual Tech Media community. We love seeing all of you lovely folks connecting around the world, and I'm seeing lots of wonderful and familiar faces out there. So I know we've got a great crew that will ask a lot of great questions today, and that always makes these a lot more fun. Now that questions window is also the best place to reach out. Let us know if you have any technical issues that come up during the session. Knock on wood, of course. If you are having any issues, I'm going to remind you that a browser refresh is going to get rid of any of the usual little tech gremlins. But if they're being a little persistent and they're hanging in there, don't worry about that. Just shoot us a message in that questions console and the ATM crew will be there to help you out. Okay, so if you were following along with me at home, you were looking at that questions tab. Now we're going to go one over and you're going to look at the handout section. So you're going to find some exciting content to go along with the webinar today, including the #1 Microsoft 365 backup guide, which explores modern SaaS data protection. You can also snag the Veeam Enterprise Report, 7 critical reasons for Microsoft 365 backup. 7 critical reasons. I feel like if you have one critical reason, you should be doing this, but you have 7, which explores why enterprise organizations need to protect their Microsoft 365 data. Plus, this is a big one, you could snag 15% off Veeam backup from Microsoft 365. That's valid until December 31st. So you got some time, but not too much time. So grab that, register, sign up, get that 15% off. What a cool deal. So some seriously cool resources to go along with our webinar today. Be sure to open those links, open those handouts, download those, and save those to look at later. Now, it's not just cool discounts and awesome content that we're giving away today. We also have a $300 Amazon gift card as a prize drawing at the end of our webinar. Now, of course, you must be in attendance. You got to be here hanging out with me today during the live webinar in order to qualify for the prize, and all winners must meet the Actual Tech Media prize terms and conditions. If you're saying to yourself, sounds good, Jess, but what are they? Don't worry. Head on over to that handouts tab. You can click in, scroll down to the bottom. The full T's and C's are waiting for you there. Now, I just mentioned how much we love to get your questions, and we do want to see those throughout. Now, and I know that a lot of you're just naturally curious humans, and you're going to ask those questions no matter what, but we're fans of a little extra incentive. So we also have the Best Questions Asked prize, which is a $50 Amazon gift card. Now, we are reviewing all of the questions asked after we wrap up the webinar, which means that even if we don't get to your question live in the session today, don't worry, because we're going to look at them all afterwards, and there's still a chance that you will win that $50 Amazon gift card. So make sure that you get those questions in, because A, that's awesome, and that helps move the conversation forward, and we love seeing that, and B, you could win a $50 Amazon gift card. So just think about all the cool scented hand soaps or whatever you might buy with that. I don't know what you buy on Amazon, but $50, it could go a long way. All right, well, I think that's about it for our intro here. And let's get started on our awesome webinar. I'm very excited to introduce you all to this panel of expert speakers and Microsoft 365 MVPs. So I'm going to introduce this all-star lineup. Let's start with Edward Watson, Senior Product Marketing Manager at Veeam, Joy Apple, Microsoft MVP, Paul Stork, Microsoft MVP and Consultant, and Vlad Catrinescu, Microsoft MVP and Consultant. Now, team, I know that you all have a lot of exciting content to cover. I can't wait to get started. So I think, Edward, I'm going to hand the mic right on over to you.
Hello and welcome to this very special panel. My name is Edward Watson. I'm a Senior Product Marketing Manager at Veeam, and I'm joined today by three special folks, Microsoft MVPs. These are MVPs that are in the Microsoft 365 Apps and Services Awards category. I'm joined by Joy Apple, who is a two-time Microsoft MVP, Vlad Catrinescu, 9-time MVP, and Mr. Paul Stork, who is a 15-time MVP. We've got a great topic lined up for you folks today. This is why you need to back up Microsoft 365. That is a question that certainly I get a lot. I'm sure that you folks get a lot as well. And we're really looking forward to a really great, engaging discussion today. So first, let's waste no time at all and dive right into this topic. Let's ask you, Vlad. Let's discuss some of the reasons why a backup might be needed. You know, what are reasons why an organization might want to back up this critical data? What are your thoughts, Vlad?
Edward, and thank you very much for having me today. Super happy to be here. And like you said, this is a question I get often, and there's two different times I get this question is when you implement Microsoft 365, like, do we need that solution? And sometimes after disaster has happened, is like, wait, there's no way to do it? Like, we cannot do it? But to answer your question, what are some of the reasons why you might need it? I would say the most common one is accidental deletes. For example, one that I really get often is Teams chats or channel messages. You delete a Teams chat, you log off, log on again, not there anymore. Same thing for a channel message. There's a lot of things in Microsoft 365 that simply don't have a recycle bin. People think there's a recycle bin for everything, but there is not. So accidental deletion coupled with the fact that there are some things in Microsoft 365 that you delete. For example, a Microsoft 365 group, after 30 days, is all gone. It's gone from the recycle bin. So a lot of those things. And of course, you also have the extreme cases of ransomware. Somebody clicked a link in an email, and I know for a lot of us in the IT space, we think that's a joke, that's something that doesn't happen. But I've worked in IT consulting companies where you had a project manager that knows their way around tech, but they still clicked a phishing email and then started sending encrypting files in their OneDrive for Business. They get uploaded, and you as IT after are like, okay, we need to restore everything to yesterday because it's just getting worse and worse. And you don't want to be the company on the front page of the news that, hey, we can't do anything for a week now because we got attacked with ransomware and we don't have a backup. Because even non-IT people know you need a backup. If you don't have a backup, you're on the front page of the newspaper, you're gonna look really, really bad. But I would say those are really my top three reasons. Accidental user deletion, admin education around the length of the recycle bin. Sometimes we just miss it and we try to go back, it's not there anymore. And of course, attacks, ransomware, and a wide variety of attacks that threat actors now do. But those are my top three. I'm sure Joy and Paul also have a lot of funny stories that they might be able to share.
I'll add one more to that list, and that is that there are a lot of cases, if you do any development work, everybody assumes that everything goes into a recycle bin when you delete it. Like if I delete a file or I delete an item in SharePoint. But a lot of times, if you do that programmatically, it doesn't go into the recycle bin. It's gone, and there is no getting it back. So that's one of the other spots that you'll run into it. The other problem that you run into is just automated life cycles of things. For example, a lot of company data nowadays gets stored in OneDrive for Business. And a lot of people don't understand that the automatic methodology for OneDrive for Business is when a user leaves a company, their user account is going to get either disabled or deleted. And when that happens, that starts an automatic process that will remove everything in their OneDrive for Business within the next 30 days if somebody doesn't go in and intervene. And that stuff also does not go into the recycle bin, so there's no way to get it back.
One thing I'd add, tying on to OneDrive for Business, is sometimes those syncs, if there are network issues and someone's working from home and they're doing that synchronization to their desktop with OneDrive for Business, sometimes things go poof. Very happy to see the shortcut come out. I think it's going to help with some of that.
Yeah.
But when that magical moment occurs, you need to have a backup strategy in place.
Well, and the other one is when you delete something on your desktop that's been synced from OneDrive, it gives you a little warning message saying you realize that you're getting ready to delete this entirely now.
And we
people
always
don't
read
just
every
click
pop-up.
OK.
Well, what do you guys think about the rush, the team's rush that we had during the pandemic of organizations having to sort of do these rush deployments? Maybe they didn't quite understand how teams worked on the back end. I mean, what are the thoughts there? Do you think a lot of these organizations kind of took some risky bets there, or made some rush decisions that maybe they overlooked backup, or backup wasn't a part of the equation, or just in general protection needed?
So you said maybe.
All right.
I'll say for a lot of organizations in the rush and the panic, definitely.
Sure.
I had a company I was working with. They had just been acquired, and there was a lot of turmoil going on at the same time as the pandemic. Word came down, you can't use SharePoint Online, but you can use Teams. And I said,
What?
show me your SharePoint Online Admin Center real quick. Let's just pop that open. And there was panic in that IT admin's voice when they said, where did all these SharePoint sites come from? All right, we had to have some conversation, but people were setting up Teams, doing things for a minute here or there, and then deleting it. Where'd all my stuff go?
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about that, right? So absolutely, we're trying to get things done to the best of our ability with chaos happening around us, not fully understanding all of the integration. So yes, absolutely. For those that were not coming from a very secure backup stance, there's pain and suffering and some hard lessons learned. And it's still happening. We still get those calls today.
Absolutely.
Well,
Let's.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, let's move on from the reasons, guys. But I think you made some really great points. But let's start with you here, Joy. Many organizations really do think they're covered, right? They're using compliance tools. We're not saying compliance tools are bad. We encourage it, of course. But what are some of the gaps, or why isn't Compliance Center enough when it comes to actually removing the need for a backup? Like, what are we looking at?
Well, it does feel like that gives us what we need, right? But everything in Microsoft 365, I kind of half tease that it's an onion, right? There are layers upon layers. And yes, you need that compliance strategy. You need to have your labels, you need to have your policies, but that doesn't actually do the thing people think it does. I can put a label and say that this is sensitive content. I can put my data loss prevention policies in place. But when something goes poof, or a user goes in and deletes something and maybe doesn't read the pop-ups that are on the screen, like I know we all do every time, right? It doesn't put the backup piece in place. Backup is part of that compliance strategy. I'm a doer, not a talker, even though I do talk a lot. I want to talk about it and then I want to go do it. Compliance is where we plan and we build our framework. But for this backup piece, you actually have to have something that's going to do it.
Right.
The other problem is compliance. It's close, but it has a slightly different focus. the whole point of compliance is to maintain sensitive information. Sensitive information may not be quite the same thing as important information. There may be a draft document out there that you're working on that is not required to be maintained legally, so it's not sensitive information. But if you lose it, you're going to lose hours worth of work. And retention covers one of those, it doesn't cover the other.
Well, Joy, I
And
have
what
to
happens
say,
when you have
oh,
that? Oh,
sorry.
go ahead.
I was gonna say, when you said that Microsoft 365 is like an onion, I thought you were gonna said it makes you cry every day, because I know
I do
that
say that
feeling.
sometimes too. It can make you cry.
But to add on a bit to what you both said is that I do have a lot of usually very technical people that come to me and say, but Vlad, if I put retention policies on everything, I can then have a way to access it. Okay, technically you might be right if in a certain way, but do you want that every time a user deletes a document, you have to open a help desk ticket, go to the admin, they have to go in the compliance center, find the data from eDiscovery, export it somehow because you can't always export it in its native format, download it, email it to the user so they put it back to where it belonged. Sure, but you're gonna waste more money doing it that way and user productivity because every single restore will now become like a 1 week thing per document because you can't even restore a full site. You have to go, okay, one document at a time. And that's something
Mm-hmm.
that a lot of very technical people always come to me. It's like, Vlad, but technically you could do it. Sure, if you want this to be your full-time job, because everything you'll want to do, it will take forever to do it. If you want to do it this way, it will not be a good user experience at the end.
No.
You don't want to waste your time like this.
Well, and again,
That's
a big part
just
of that
because
is
we
that
can.
it's a slightly different purpose. So you can export a whole pile of stuff in eDiscovery all at one time, but you're exporting it to a DVD so that you can hand it off to the opposing counsel. You're not exporting it so that you can put it back where it was.
And it falls under that. I mean, can you imagine every legal department in the world would wail if you said, oh, we're just going to save everything and we just won't let anything truly be deleted? Well, now you've got a whole other compliance disaster that's about to happen because a lot of stuff, most things, dare I say, should not live forever. And it's
Oh,
interesting like deployment project managers and team leads in the IT department. What does legal say about your retention policies? Well, we haven't gotten there yet. Okay, great. Now's the perfect time to bring up a chair and let them sit at the table and say, how do we need to configure your compliance center? What does your backup and restore process need to look like? Because they have to have a place at the table too. It's an important conversation.
and not to mention, there's a way that you can use retention labels to automatically delete data. 2 years ago, there was a company in the news. I don't, you can, I'm sure you can Google it if you want to, but the admin by accident set a retention label to automatically delete all Teams chat data after 1 day. And what does retention labels do in that case? Well, it deletes it completely because now it's a legal liability. So now they didn't have a backup, so they were not able to actually restore that data. They completely lost the team's data. So you can mess up compliance tools as well where you need a backup. It's not a backup solution. It's not the same thing. There is a story. I'm sure all of the attendees can Google it. If not, I'm not gonna put it just because don't want to put that company in the spotlight, but it goes back to you don't want to be on the front page of the news because you didn't have a backup.
Right.
Great. Well, excellent points, guys. The user error thing, I think that's very, very important to note. So let's talk specifically about restores. So there are restore options in M365, but there are going to be some limitations. So Paul, why don't you lead us through what some of those limitations might be, and maybe some challenges as well with those restores in M365?
So I would suggest about three, and we've already just talked about one of them, and that is that in general, when you go to restore stuff, if retention and compliance is your backup strategy, when you're doing restores, it's not as easy as go out and say, I need to get this whole document library back. You go out and you have to get every individual document in that document library back one at a time and go re-upload them all. It is a very painstaking process. The second reason that I would suggest that restores can be a problem is that more often than not, the only people who have the ability to do that are people who have relatively high administrative permissions. Most things in Microsoft are really geared in the direction of let the user, let the information worker who owns the information do it for themselves. And that is not the way compliance and retention is set up. Compliance and retention is the administrators set the policies, everything happens automatically. But if you need to get that back out again, you got to go to a fairly high level compliance administrator to get that data back out, because it's in there so that it can be legally protected and retained. And so you don't want regular people to be able to get in there. And the third one is that there are a number of automatic systems that are usually pointed at. We've talked a little bit about the recycle bin. There's the file restore process in OneDrive. File restore process in OneDrive, for example, what a lot of people don't realize, real easy to go in and say, I need to get this file back from prior to this date. And people don't recognize that the way that that works is that every time you change the file, it stores a copy. That's called versioning. That's an option that can be turned off. If you turn that off, files restore no longer works. Recycle bin, it's now up to, it'll store it for 93 days. And if the user deletes it, you can always go to the site administrator, site collection administrator to retrieve it. But when you hit that 94th day, it's gone. And there is no getting it back. A lot of people don't, I mean, we joke about not reading the pop-ups on the screen. You don't read the pop-ups on the screen, nobody reads the user rights agreement. If you go read the user rights agreement for Microsoft 365, it is explicitly stated in the user rights agreement that Microsoft bears no responsibility for the security of, for the retention of your data, that things happen, Murphy's Law exists, and stuff does go missing, and it's not Microsoft's fault if that happens. So you just can't depend upon the built-in systems to take care of it. They're good, and they can solve a lot of problems and get rid of a lot of day-to-day administrative nightmares, but in the long run, they're not an ultimate solution. When disaster happens, you need disaster recovery, and recycle bin is not it.
I was working with an organization, moving them from on-prem into Microsoft 365 and SharePoint Online. So we did get their migration done. Things were going really well. And my point of contact comes back to the team and says, where's all the recycle bin content in SharePoint Online? And he just kind of forwarded the email around going, I don't want to assume what he's talking about, but do you think he's really asking why we didn't migrate the recycle bin? So I was like, I got this. So I went back, I was talking about it. He said, well, we use that as our archive. So they had turned off or bumped way out the deletion time for their on-prem recycle bins. And we're expecting to use that as their archive, their backup, basically. So we had to have a conversation about how moving into the new world, well, number one, that shouldn't have been a thing. But then moving into the new world, that's not a thing.
No.
Yeah, your recycle bin, it's the trash, it's the garbage, and it needs to be just reminded sometimes, especially those folks that I call out when we're having conversations, like who deletes their deleted email like daily or weekly? Those are the ones that are going to go in the recycle bin, right? If you think you're going to need it, don't put it there.
And that's the other thing we should point out is we all three of us live very heavily in the SharePoint world. It's where we grew up and where we cut our teeth. But when we're talking about backup, M365 is a lot more than SharePoint. It's even a lot more than Teams. You've got to take into account all of that email that goes through Exchange Online. And there is no real recycle bin for Exchange Online. There's archiving, but you need to implement that. It's not turned on by default. So again, unless you've turned on auto archive, when you delete an email and you've got your mailbox set up to automatically delete your mailbox on a daily basis, it's gone, and there's no getting it back.
Actually, just leave everything in the inbox. No,
I
my inbox is like the nightmare of zero inbox people. I think I have 60,000 emails in my inbox, and that's why I love Microsoft 365 Search. Helps me out most of the time.
And your email client has probably got a PST behind it, and you got a 4 terabyte drive that it's stored on.
That's okay. That's why I just buy better hardware to avoid my problems. But that's something that we could have done on-prem, like a Joy Story with bumping the recycle bin up to 5 years. That's something we were able to do on-prem. We had so much control on the settings that now you move to software as a service, you don't have access to the server behind anymore. If Microsoft wants to hide an option for you, they will just hide it. You lose that control. And all of the little hacks that we did on-prem to not have to do backup, or we did kind of backup a certain way, now it's gone. It's you either do it properly, or after either 30, 93, or depending on the service, 7 days, you completely lose that data. And that's something that that a lot of companies have been a bit slower to adapt on.
Yeah, we should also point out that SharePoint Server on-prem actually has a backup and restore system in central admin. Well, SharePoint Online doesn't have central admin, and there is no backup and restore process built into either the site collection administration screen or into the SharePoint administration screen. It's not the same as being on-prem, where you can back up the server or where you can back up your SQL databases.
And not to mention the fact that if a user, let's say you're a site collection admin, really doesn't like you, they just got fired, and they can just go in, delete from second stage recycle bin as well. They have the permissions to delete files if they're a site collection admin from the second stage recycle bin, whether that's on purpose or maybe by accident, because they said like, hey, my admin said quotas, let me just go in second stage recycle bin, delete everything. And they ended up needing one important document, like Paul said earlier, between sensitive and important. They ended up deleting one important document. If it's gone from the second stage recycle bin, because one user, again, they might have been very well intentioned, they wanted to save storage space for whatever reason. How do you restore that document now? That's a problem.
Well, and don't downplay the malicious deletion either, because it's not always by accident. Malicious deletion by internal employees for one reason or another is a much bigger problem than hackers from the outside world.
I try to be an optimistic person. I trust people. That's why I give the benefit of the doubt. But I think we see too much backup marketing of what happens if you get attacked, what happens if you get a ransomware. And a lot of companies are like, I'm 3 people doing IT consulting in Montreal. Nobody hates my company enough to attack us. Like, nobody even knows we exist other than our 10 clients. We don't need backup. But it can be an accident from internal users as well, other than the, of course, like you said, obvious attack reasons. But a lot of smaller companies don't think they will get attacked because they're not big enough. But that's not the only reason for backup.
What about the absolute? Well, what about the absolute last resort? I hear of a lot of organizations saying, well, I can just ask Microsoft at the end of the day. for this data? Any reason why you wouldn't want to do
So I was just about to say that too,
that?
and I have this conversation a lot. It's like, oh, but if somebody deletes Brenda's Excel spreadsheet that the entire organization's financial process runs through, can't we just put in a ticket to Microsoft to get that back? Okay, you can put in a ticket to Microsoft about that. But, Paul pointed out, there's this whole agreement thing that says in there, it's not their responsibility. And more than likely, if you're the 3-man team or the 300-person team, there's a really good chance, Microsoft is a wonderful company, but there's a really good chance that ticket's going to get responded with, sorry.
Well, and even when
Better-
Microsoft will do it, there's a different timing involved. We talked about the recycle bin is 93 days. Microsoft's published timing for submitting that ticket and getting something back is 14 days. If you're on the 15th day, they won't help you however big they are because their backup takes recycle by then. So they'll do what they can for you, but it's a much shorter time frame.
Yeah.
To talk about the onion, I think dealing with Microsoft support made me cry more than dealing with Microsoft 365.
You're suggesting it takes you 14 days to get somebody to understand what you're saying?
I never said that. But even when, let's say, everything goes well, when they restore, for example, and the 14 days, Paul, you mentioned, only applies to SharePoint and OneDrive for Business, not to Teams, not to groups, not to Planner, and all of that other fun stuff. But even when they restore it, they can only restore one site collection. So if you only deleted one document, everybody else keeps working on the site. Now you have the decision 10 days later, do we restore that document, but we lose all the work that has been done in the 10 days since? You don't have that restore one document capability. It's the full site collection. So how much do you gain by using that restore of the full site collection from Microsoft?
Yeah, great point, guys. Let's shift gears because I think we have all well established that a backup is probably needed and restore capabilities. But Vlad, why don't you kick us off with what are some of the must-haves for as organizations are looking at third-party backup solutions? What should they be looking for?
Okay, so first of all, for backup, you probably need to keep backups for 1 year, 2 years, things like that. Something to be very careful at. There's a lot of companies that have been around for 3 or 4 months, do a lot of marketing, and you need to make sure that you work with somebody that's reliable, somebody that you trust is going to be there for the long term, because if you cannot restore it after, well, it's not use for you if you need a backup in 1 year and the company is not there anymore. But if we take that out of the way, for me is uh, 3 different things. First of all, the ability to back up into other clouds. We don't want to have on-prem. We always said don't keep the backups on the same server as the thing you're backing up, right? If we take it to the cloud now, you need to find a company that allows you to automatically back up, let's say from 365 to AWS, to GCP, to an on-prem server. This way you're not in the same cloud if something goes down. And we've all seen how if Azure AD goes down or DNS at Microsoft goes down, it's the full thing. It's not only one service. The second thing is find something that empowers your users to self-service. So we talked about how compliance tools, yeah, you can kind of use it, but you have to go through IT for everything. Well, you don't want to pay IT people with IT skills and IT salaries to just have to restore stuff all day long because it's so complicated. Try to find a tool that empowers your users. Of course, you set the guardrails, you configure their sandbox, but if somebody deleted an Excel document, why wouldn't they be able to restore it themselves from the backup? But of course, again, all the security and all the other settings around it. And last, try to find one backup solution that can manage your whole ecosystem. We have so many services now in Microsoft Cloud, from Azure Virtual Machines to stuff in Azure Active Directory to stuff in Microsoft 365. If you have three backup solutions that you have to learn three different things from your IT team, and then especially that now stuff lives everywhere. You create a Microsoft 365 group, you create something in Azure AD, you create something in Exchange, in SharePoint. If those tools don't talk to each other, restoring it might cause a huge mess. So try to find a tool that can help all of your IT team, not only the Microsoft 365 team. So those are my top three. Paul and Joy, I'm sure you have other tips and tricks as well.
We're all waiting for
Go
the
ahead,
other one
Joy.
first.
I've been stepping on you all day, so please do.
No. I agree 100%. Granularity is one of the big things that pops to my mind. Like we were just talking about with Microsoft Restore, basically you're going to get the whole site collection, which to me translates as probably the whole content database, right, is going to get restored. That's probably not ideal, but that ties in perfectly with what you were saying, Vlad, about it being self-service, right? So Brenda's spreadsheet gets deleted. Brenda needs to be able to go get that back in a way that doesn't become a bottleneck for IT. So I think that's one of the beautiful things. And we're all old school SharePoint people. And I think we've preached for a lot of years about when you use SharePoint the SharePoint way. And now when you expand into Microsoft 365 and use it more the way it's intended, it does empower the users, which terrifies a lot of IT admin. But if we have our compliance, our security, that backup is there, they can take that burden off IT in a way that's not terrifying and not scary. Those are the two big things, but hand in hand, I agree, the ability to have those backups outside of the system where you are. So when that system goes down, you know your backups are still where you can get to them. That's huge.
Yeah, I agree with everything that Joy and Vlad have said. I view it from a slightly different angle. For me, a lot of it is the continuums. So you need both, on the one hand, a self-service environment where one person can go back and get one file back that they accidentally deleted. But on the other end of it, when you have a ransomware attack, you need to have the ability for the IT staff to go in and do everything without having to go out to multiple people and say, well, can you get your site collection back? Can you get your site collection back? And so on. Second thing would be, just from traditional backup point of view, it needs to support a multi-generational strategy. So I can't just take snapshots in time and then keep overwriting the snapshot with the next one, because sure enough, something's going to happen and I need to get back to a specific point in time to recover the data that I need to recover. So you need to be able to do backups that are multi-generational, where a backup today is not superseded by a backup tomorrow, and also to be efficient at it, that it can do it in such a way that I don't have to actually back up everything every time, that I can take, backups that are just what has changed in this last time frame and so forth, until maybe I get to the end of the week or the end of the month, and then we do a full snapshot of everything. So that would be one of the other pieces. As we've already mentioned, it needs to be able to support all the different products that are part of an M365, with all the different complexities that involve. Teams is the perfect example. Teams is not only just Teams and the SharePoint site behind it, but there are so many other products that tie into Teams. And one of the real advantages to Teams is the ability to go out and embed almost any application into the Teams site as a tab. Well, that extends that I need to have backups of all that stuff as well, in some fashion, if I'm going to actually get the team site back to the point where I want to get it back to when I go to do the restore. So we need to have kind of both sides of a continuum, all the way from a self-service point of view for minor disasters to, a major disaster where the IT staff has to step in and be able to do it for everybody else in the organization.
Yeah, great points, everyone. So we're going to have our quick wrap-up discussion. So Joy, you can kick us off. But the wrap-up here is, and we've been leading down a path, but really to kind of solidify this and conclude this for everyone on the line today. Is a backup really needed? More to the point, in what way is it actually needed? Your final thoughts. We'll kick off with you first, Joy.
So my first response is absolutely, right? Paul, I was seeing your social media and you made the perfect analogy, right? We have insurance, not because we think we're going to use it every day. We have insurance to protect us when bad things happen. That's exactly what we need for a backup tool to do. It protects us for when, by accident or by malicious intent from the outside or inside, something bad happens. And that gives us confidence. I work with customers, we all talk with people all the time that are nervous about moving to the cloud, moving off prem because they feel like they have control over things on prem, on their file shares or whatever. But when you can come in and go, okay, you're going to be safe, you're going to be protected, and you're going to give them confidence that they're going to have continuity no matter what happens. That's a huge step in user adoption, is having the confidence of the entire organization in this product, in this new platform, and in this new world that whether we were starting to do it before COVID or after, right? The world is going all cloud at a very fast pace. And it gives confidence, it gives security. And backup tools, we just said the things we absolutely must have, right? Granularity, the ability to restore just as much as we need at the time. Those are all the reasons why it's so critical and such a important piece of the infrastructure.
Great. Your
Okay,
final
I'll
thoughts,
go
Vlad?
So yes is the short answer. Get backup now, because if something happens and you don't have it, it's too late to apologize after. It's you have to start now. You have to start backing things up now. You'll be happy when something happens, whether it's a small thing, and you'll just make, like Joy said, you'll make Brenda happy that the file that got deleted, you're able to restore it for them. Whether it's a small thing like that or ransomware hits, but it's okay. We'll be down for a half a day. We'll restore everything back, and we're back in business. No need to make a big deal out of it. You cannot start after the incident happens. Like insurance, if your house is on fire, you can't call them and say like, "Hey, is it too late now to start paying you $20 a month for the fire that you need to replace my whole house?" Uh, get it now. Better be prepared than be sorry after.
I mean, I agree with everything that Joy and Vlad have said. The one piece that I would add is clearly from all of the conversation we've had today, the piece that we haven't talked about is that there's an education and training piece that's involved in this as well. We've all brought up several different spots where people assume that Microsoft 365 works one way, but in reality, it's slightly different. So it's not enough as an organization to just go out and get a backup strategy and get a backup system. You also have to educate your users on why you did that and why it is critical for the existence of the business that you do that. We've talked about how important it is to have self-service capabilities built into the backup system. Well, if you don't explain to people why that's important or what's going on there, you're going to cause a disaster in and of itself just when you try to use the backup and restore system. So we often overlook and think, oh, well, backup and restore, that's an IT function. I can just go out and we'll do that and we'll get everything backed up and we're protected when that ransomware attack comes. And you might be, but you're really missing the boat if you don't go out and explain to people what's going on and why that's critical and why this is so important. And the other piece I would key off of that I think Joy mentioned was, post-COVID, the business community is just accelerating in the direction where this is no longer a nice thing to have. This is no longer just a competitive advantage for a company to do business. This is really the cost of entry. That if you don't have a robust cloud system that can tie all of your organizational employees together, you're really behind the times, and you're going to find it hard to work in any industry that you're in nowadays, much less to truly compete. So it's just critical, and it's something that needs to be supported by everybody in the organization, not just the upper level management.
And you said
Great,
training.
great. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I'll tag one more thing onto that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So part of that training exercise too is running through. You get an awesome backup tool. And I think we're going to learn more about one in particular in just a minute. But you get that awesome backup tool. We have to make sure the IT department knows how to use it, goes through it. When I took over a SharePoint farm about 15 years ago, they were giving me the rundown. I was learning about what we were using to back up our farm. And I was like, great, when's the last time we tested a restore? Oh, we've not done that.
Yep.
You got to run through those exercises to make sure you're prepared too. That's so critical.
Definitely.
And there are certain industries, I used to work in banking, and there are certain industries where that's an actual requirement, that you have to do a cold site run through every 6 months.
Absolutely, and even on the compliance side as well, I'm definitely hearing that for banks especially, a backup is not a nice to have. It's industry standard. So definitely, hey, great thoughts today, guys. Really appreciate you joining the webinar today. I'm going to switch gears and talk a little bit about what Veeam does on the Veeam side. So let me know when you can see my screen, okay?
Yep.
Can you see my screen? Okay, perfect. So the solution I'm going to talk about today is Veeam Backup for Microsoft 365. This is our solution that helps protect M365 data. And really the whole goal here is essentially eliminating the risks. A lot of the risks we've spoken about today about losing access to the data, whether that's Exchange Online, SharePoint Online, OneDrive for Business, or even Teams. We actually came out with our Teams solution during the pandemic, so that was very fortunate for our customers who were already with Veeam that we could help protect their data. We allow, with this solution, to securely back up to really any location. We've talked about that as one of the benefits today, allowing you to back up whether on-prem or in the cloud, because we know that ultimately organizations want that choice in the end. Protect you against all of the vulnerabilities, the reasons we spoke about today, accidental deletion, security threats, give you those restore options, whether those are individual files or even sites and teams, or really whatever you have in your environment, your whole ecosystem. And of course, on the legal side, really give you the control over getting those individual files or folders off to your legal or compliance officer. So some of the differences with Veeam, we've spoken about a few of these and really the importance of these, but really when it comes down to Veeam, it's all about infrastructure freedom. That's something we've really made sure that we allow our customers to achieve. And that trickles not just down from the deployments, but all the way to how the data is stored, or even being able to switch infrastructure from one to another. Maybe you want to use AWS 1 year, maybe it's Azure the next. We don't want to penalize you for doing that. There's a lot of companies where it's a little trickier, a little more stringent in terms of the policies for moving, and in some cases, it can be quite costly to move and change infrastructure. So there's that great flexibility there. What backup would be complete without control over that backup, making sure you're backing up as often as you need. We can back up as low as every 5 minutes and offer that tiered protection, so you're able to not only protect across your entire organization, but protect individual departments, organizations, according to the value of their data. Maybe you want to back up your sales department a couple times a week. Maybe it's your C-level a couple times a day. So we really allow for that great tailoring approach. We've talked about the importance of recovery options. Veeam has 45. and we offer a variety of different ways to restore back to M365, back to your on-prem environment, export data for auditing purposes, save or send to users, so a variety of different needs. And of course, you have to make sure your recoveries are scalable. Veeam offers a bulk recovery, so you can restore many users all at one time. So you're able to essentially save time on those recoveries, or even get as granular as individual users as well. Of course, we're a very quite reliable vendor in that we have a complete platform. You know, I think it was you, Vlad, that mentioned the importance of, you know, using one platform so you're not having to learn multiple ways of backing up and restoring data across different services. So that's something that Veeam does very well, and we have plenty of resources to allow for that support as well. Speaking of support, and this is a bit of a humble brag slide, but the importance of this slide really is ultimately this is a battle-tested solution, right? This is a solution that's been in the market for the past 5 years. We've got many large organizations and enterprises that use this product on a daily basis. Gartner recognized, Forbes recognized on the 100 cloud companies, and of course we have been a loyal Microsoft partner for 5 years now. So this is just a slide to rest assured you're in good company with Veeam. And of course, don't take my word for it. Please don't. Go on to TrustRadius, G2 Crowd. These are two really great review sites to really understand, you know, what third-party backup solutions are like from users like you, admins like you. These are some great reviews, so you can simply search for Veeam on either of these sites. And to close out, please get your QR scanners ready because we've got a ton of QR codes coming at you the next few slides. The first one here is please read up or share this M365 Backup for Dummies ebook. We worked on this and with another MVP, and this contains a lot of information, more than what we were able to share today. So we hope you'll download this. You can also Google M365 Backup for Dummies, and you will find it that way as well. You can also read our technical guide if you're interested a little more on the technical side, how Veeam Backup for Microsoft 365 works. Check this solution guide out. This really breaks down the individual components and how they all work together, and is a great short read. And ultimately, see for yourself. Take the 30-day free trial, full functionality for 30 days, and then after that, if you have 10 users, it's actually free forever. So it reverts automatically to our community edition version of the product, which is free for 10 users forever. And lastly, we do offer a 15% off for a limited time. You can get this product whether you're a new customer to Veeam or even a customer already using Veeam, but not M365. So definitely take advantage of this offer. And with that, if you do have questions, I do encourage you to pop these in now. Okay, so this one's actually for me. So as opposed to a Microsoft ticket requesting recovery, Veeam requests take how long? I believe we offer, well, it's a 24-hour support, so typically it won't take more than 24 hours for us to address on the support side. It won't take longer than that, and of course it will take even less in most cases. So that's expectations there. Really appreciate the folks here, the Microsoft MVPs we had on the call today. And with that, I hope you have a great rest of the day. Thank you very much for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Wow, well, man, Edward, Joy, Paul, and Vlad, thank you all again so much for being here with us today. Speaking on behalf of the audience, I think we're all feeling really fired up about Microsoft 365 data protection and backup. I know there were a lot of questions that we did not get to today on the panel, but don't worry. Again, the Veeam crew is going to get all the questions that you asked during the webinar, and you will hear back from them. If you are looking for some more exciting content right away, don't forget to head on over to that handouts tab. You can download the #1 Microsoft 365 backup guide. exploring modern SaaS data protection. You could also snag the Veeam Enterprise Report, 7 critical reasons for Microsoft 365 backup. And that's going to explore why enterprise organizations need to protect their Microsoft 365 data. So I think we just got a lot of reasons, and this is a great follow-up to do some reading after we wrap today. Plus, you can also snag that awesome offer to get the 15% off Veeam backup that we were just hearing about. So lots and lots of great content in there. And I really do want to say a special thank you right now to everyone that had some incredible questions coming in. And I'm seeing some wonderful positive feedback. So thank you for that. That's always nice for the speakers to see how much you guys all enjoyed the presentation there. So thanks for those high fives and sending your response now, Bruce. We appreciate it. Okay, well, I hope that you guys have enjoyed the entire webinar, and I know that you're all very excited about what's on the screen right now. So let's go ahead and get to that prize giveaway. A quick reminder that you do need to be attendance here at the live webinar in order to win. So today's winner of a $300 Amazon gift card is Geetha Pemasani from Nebraska. Geetha Pemasani from Nebraska. I know I saw you this morning, Geetha. I hope you're on the webinar again this afternoon, and we will be in touch about claiming your prize after we wrap. And with that, on behalf of Actual Tech Media team, I want to thank Veeam, the Veeam team, love that, for making this webinar possible. And a giant thank you again to Edward for facilitating and giving us some expert information about Veeam. Also to Joy, Paul, and Vlad for an absolutely fascinating panel discussion today. Again, I just learned so much. And it was so much fun to share that with all of you. So sending some high fives and special thank yous to all of you for attending and asking some really wonderful questions. Again, this makes it a lot more fun and interactive for all of us. So I really enjoyed watching those come in. Webinars like this, panels like this, they really are wonderful to be a part of because they give all of us a chance to explore some of these ideas together, to connect over new ideas, start exploring solutions, and that's where innovation comes from. So it's really neat to see that sort of happening in live time with all of you. Well, I know I had a wonderful time chatting with you all today, and I can't wait to see you all again at a webinar soon. And until then, have an absolutely beautiful rest of your day.